Hey, Tom. Good morning and welcome to the off-season studio. Great to have you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
There's an unbelievable enthusiasm about the off-season skill development sessions in the month of May and June, and also the upcoming Summer Academy in the month of July, where you're going to be a big part of. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But first, let me ask some questions to get to know you a little bit better. Where were you born?
Yeah, I was born in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. So that was my, my early development in sport is from the west coast of Canada, so North America, and I've had the opportunity to be in a multi-sport template. So seasonal sports, obviously, sport is run through the high school level, and so I had the opportunity to play multiple sports like most kids do in North America, that was fantastic to be able to have the experience to play multiple different sports during the school year, and that was super.
Oh, so you don't come from the States, because everybody suggests when you see a basketball player coming here, they come from the States. But in Canada, there's a big community in basketball too.
Oh, yeah, and you've seen that. I think you can start to see that now if you're following the NBA. And, in Canada, we have a hotbed of talent across the nation, but there's a real concentration of talent in Ontario, specifically Toronto, the Greater Toronto region, and also Quebec and Montreal. Of course, you have tremendous athletic profile with the Haitian, Jamaican communities, and so you have that the profile athletically, and now coaching and teaching and development. It's the science and the template has just continued to grow. So they're producing some really fine, talented players, and you see that with evidence of how many Canadians are playing in the NBA and having success in top leagues in Europe.
Yeah, a lot of things have changed since we were young. I mean, can be easily inspired with Instagram and online courses. The world is getting much smaller in that way. Seeing you work in the practices, it's unbelievable, the passion that you show for youth work. Where do you get your input? Or do you make that stuff up yourself? Or do you have certain channels that you follow?
Yeah, I think it started with my early grassroots development. And, you don't realize that so much at the time, but having like tremendous teacher coaches, like I was blessed to have had, probably arguably one of the best coaches in Canadian basketball history, and Ken Shields, who ended up being the men's national team coach of Canada. I played with the national team program for 8 years, and he was my university coach at the University of Victoria. So from my early grassroots development, I was taught, of course, now with the different in the science and the evolution of development at every age and stage of development. But if I look back and I see and I remember back and reflect back of what I was taught and how I was taught the game and what was demanded of us, it was really second to none. So I think my passion for teaching comes from that early stage of development, which I got when I was 15, 16, 17 years old. And that actually stayed with me. And I think that's the foundation. And of course, with all the other travels and all the other experience and all the other coaches that I played for as a player in Europe, with the national team internationally, and then after my playing career, coaching and hearing different voices, I think it's just sort of like it's only normal that you evolve as a teacher if you stay being a student of the game. So, but I think the original inspiration and template was from those early formative years.
Yeah, so you did your high school. It's basically the same template as in the States, I think, high school and then college. And then you came over here to Europe. Did you come immediately to Belgium?
Yeah, so my first, at that time, of course, there wasn't, a huge social media platform to give yourself the opportunity to have exposure. Most of us on the Canadian national team, even at that time, a lot of the players did not have agents. But of course, we were, I was in a pool of, let's say, 16 to 18 players, top players in Canada that had the opportunity to get exposure with international tournaments. Obviously, with FIBA and World University Games, Pan American Games, World Championships. That's where we had the exposure of having other club teams in Europe see us play, and that gave me the opportunity to come to Belgium in my first professional contract. I think at that time I wasn't really even thinking about. I was thinking about playing professionally maybe 1 year, finishing university, having the experience of living overseas, making a little bit of money, but having that experience of seeing another place and residing in another place during a course of a year and a season, and then maybe just kind of coming back and teaching and coaching, or starting the rest of my life. But it ended up being a 11-year professional career, and then of course ended up staying here and starting my coaching career.
So I know you played in Bree. We did some practices. I came as a young kid, came in there when you were playing there. I remember that. What teams were the other teams of Belgium? You only played in Belgium or brought to?
No, I played. So the first team, the first time I came to Belgium was Castors Brain. At that time, it was 93, 94.
They had good teams, huh?
We had good teams. We had very, very, at that time, we're one of the top 3-4 teams in Belgium. And then after Castors, I went to Italy. I played in Italy, and then I played in France, in Pro A, and then I came back to Bree in Belgium.
With Paul Vervaak.
I played with Paul Vervaak.
Danny Herman.
And Danny Hermans.
A long-time hero.
Yeah, incredible shooter. And actually, I had seen Danny previously when we were traveling with the national teams. I forget what year it was, but we played a Belgian select team, and that was before I became teammates with him. That's when I saw him. It was this kind of unathletic, white guy that's shooting us out in the game. So, so after Bree, I played in Gießen in Germany. And then I also had a short period of time in Bamberg in Germany, and then I finished my career in Italy. I played, my first year when I played in Italy, I played in Caserta, which is the countryside of Napoli, and then my last year was in Italy, was in Sicily, in Ragusa. I played in Ragusa. So it wasn't sort of designed and planned that I would be, moving around that much. I mean, I could have easily just stayed in one place, but with professional basketball, it's like
you want to move forward. You have to change.
You want to move forward, and you're searching for the next best. And some players have the luxury and the fortune to to stay in one place and grow with that team. And but for me, I'm being a somewhat of a journeyman, it was like reflecting back on it. It gave me a lot of rich experiences that have helped me. In life after basketball and in coaching and teaching. So it's brought a lot of, all those experience, I think brought me a lot of expertise and understanding, overall. So
after your pro playing career, you ended up back in Belgium?
Yeah, well, so that was, after, so when I stopped playing, I was... I had met my wife in Brie the year I was playing there, and so that's why Belgium became
Your
a
base.
became a base for me. So so it was always from that moment after 98, 99 season in Brie, Belgium was my base.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And then you went into coaching, but you had quite a. I know you were in Liège, Aalst.
I was in Vilvoorde. I started in Vilvoorde, and then I went to Liège.
With Dieter Toeverens, back in the day.
Yeah, with Dieter, and then I went to Ulst after Vilvoorde, and we had 2 great seasons there, winning the championship in second division, and had a very, very good first year in first division, the second season in Ulst, and then I moved on and went to Liège, so I had a good period of tenure in the Belgian league.
Yeah, and now you're coaching Athenas, of course. Everybody knows this.
Yeah.
What's the difference between coaching men's and women's basketball?
Yeah, well, there's some there's some obvious generalities for me, but for me, the biggest thing is the difference in ego between men and women. I think men have a different ego and a different representation. I think women are far more open to learning new things, especially when the confidence and the trust is there that they know that those things are helping them grow and develop and be a better player. And then the commitment bond between the coach and the female player, it just goes through the roof. I think the other thing is the difference in how they respond to criticism, to critical criticism, constructive criticism. I think you have to be extremely. I think you can. I teach and I coach women the same way that I coach men in terms of the practice template. The difference is that I think you, on a human level, you have to have more frequent conversations to strengthen that commitment bond and to have the empathy, but then the clarity. So I just think there's just more different kind of and a more frequent communication and patience.
Yeah, and what I see in your practices with Athenas, even though they're seniors, of course, evidently, that most coaches coach only the team, and now you coach. You even have one practice that you work on individual stuff, skill development, athletic development. So you only have 3 practices, but you really do one practice only this. Is this your vision that even at an older age you can still learn new skills?
Yes, certainly, and in terms of the performance, ultimate performance of your team. I mean, if there's extreme habitual mechanical fundamental deficits, it's going to affect the performance of your team. So for us, the skill acquisition and the corrective input that we have in terms of the fundamental aspects of the game, if you don't spend time on those things, then you're gonna fail. So we don't compromise the development session each week at the expense of one more strategic or one more team tactical practice. I think that's the one thing that we're quite proud of, but with what we're trying to do in Athenas, and I don't know of how many other teams at the TDW level that are actually committed doing this ongoing. So with the 40 minutes of with the strength and conditioning coach, and the 40 minutes of basketball, working on all of the universal and fundamental weaknesses. I think that this is crucial for us to continue to build and grow and keep moving forward with this. So we don't compromise the this template. Because it's a long-term view, and we have younger players and younger developing players that that clearly have missed some development at some previous stages in terms of these things, and so we commit to invest, and for us it's like the mindset we have. It's like putting money in the bank. It's like it's an investment, and it will pay off for us down the road. And of course, we need to have the higher skilled position players, and we need more. We need a quality of players, and but I think that we're committed in Athenas to working this way, and I think that we've seen increments of improvement and development, and we will continue to work this way.
Yeah, seeing you work with Athenas, it was evident that we had to bring you in with the skill development practices that we do. Those 5 practices, and we have a great team with Mithun Wene, Ronnie McCullum, even with the experience of Ludo Horions, bringing in the young coaches like Ben Lambrecht and Jeffrey Bogart. What are you seeing during those practices of those kids?
Yeah, well, so the kids and the players, they show you what they need to be taught. So I think for me is if you're really a committed and a passionate student of the game, you're viewing. They're showing you what they need from you. So it's been great to be able to get an overview and a look at their strengths. Of course, there's deficits there, but every player has strengths and deficits. But I think it's just allowed me, in terms of my part, to plug in a formula or plug in specific things as I get to know the kids week after week, to plug in a specific formula to help them grow in the areas that the real fundamentally weak areas, and just to give them more practice repetition in those areas, and to also accentuate their strengths, because I think that's really important too. But I think it's just getting the overall view and a feel for their strengths and their weaknesses, and to to help them grow and improve in their weak areas.
Yeah, and they're very passionate. I mean, the amount of players that show up has almost doubled going into this year. I think it's a tremendous opportunity for every player that wants to learn to be there. The combination of athletic development and skill development, do you think it's important at this moment in the season, the off-season?
Oh, it's vital. I mean, and this is the thing that, like, all teacher coaches, like, not everyone can work to the level of a Jan Adrians in terms of strength and conditioning. But I think that your practice template, like, I think we have the responsibility as coaches to help these kids be better athletes. Not only better basketball players, but and because we know now that in the top 1% of this sport, more athletic, faster, stronger, quicker, more skilled, and I think that this is the holistic view that is continuously evolving in the idea about development, certainly about youth development. So I think the great thing about, like, what off-season does is that you have this holistic approach to development, and the summertime is crucial, because during player development happens in the off-season. I mean, there's increments of development that you can do in season, but you have team offense, you have team defense, you have team dynamics, you have. I think you have to script the development template in terms of your 90 minutes, because rarely teams have 2 hours of practice time. So overall, in general, it's 90 minutes. I think your first 20, 25, 30 minutes have to be all of the universal weaknesses of youth development. So ball handling, passing and catching, shooting, and finishing, with equal efficiency with both hands at different angles, to the rim, to the basket, and then the evolution of reading situation. But I think that so the practice template has to be the first 20, 25 minutes. There's some mechanical repetition where you go part method, like literal part method, because the kids don't get enough repetition. So with 2 practices a week, maybe some clubs are having 3 practices a week. It's still not. It's not perfect, but that is what it is. So therefore, your practice template and your practice organization has to be on point. Like, it has to be, this is the template of the first 20, 25 minutes, and then you can start adding more randomization of how to react in this situation, how to react in that situation, going from passive defense to a more live defensive situation, working on offense and defense. And this is vitally important, this template, if you really, really want to accelerate the development of players through those ages and stages of development.
And seeing you guys work, I mean, we have very good youth coaches in the different clubs, but that's a whole lot of knowledge that I see in action over there that you guys have built with the team, with Mitu and Ronnie and the other coaches. And it would be great to inspire even youth coaches who want to learn to pass that on to the next generation, or to coaches who want to be there. How do you see that? Would that be something that you would love to invest in?
Yeah, I've that's always been my mindset. I've always been somebody that likes to share, and especially with young, ambitious, fantastic students of the game. When I get a sense and I see that around me, I tend to gravitate myself. I'm a little bit older now. I'm going to be 56 next week, but that really, really inspires me, and that's just something that I just do automatically. Like I want to help, I want to mentor, I want to have open discussions. And I think that we need to do this more. I think there needs to be more of this thing. But I think young coaches need to also seek out mentors and be more industrious in terms of, and proactive in terms of getting out and introducing themselves to other coaches and hearing different voices and different philosophies. I mean, it starts there. I mean, it starts with what your philosophy is about, development, what your philosophy is about offense, what your philosophy is about defense, and continually working on this, because it does take between 6 to 7 to 8 years if you're working on this and busy with this in order for
on a daily basis.
On a daily basis, and in order for you to be completely firm in how you see and how you view and how you want to implement your teaching with your team and help your players develop and grow. So if you don't have taken the time to have the exercise to write down what this is, what your values are, what your philosophy is, then and it's remarkable how many, when I talk to young coaches about this, if I see they're interested and we're opening up conversation, I ask them, have you written down your philosophy yet? And oftentimes, more times than not, they were like, well, no, not exactly. I haven't written that down. I mean, it starts there. So it's that brainstorming, that just openness to just sit down and start writing things down and keeping notes, and this is really, really important for your development as a coach.
And that's basically why 10 years ago we started the off season. When I was going to the end of my career, my player career, I learned a lot, keeping my body healthy, working with all these great coaches, and I felt like if I would have known this when I was younger,
Yeah.
where would I have been able to go? And that's why we started the off season. So maybe we can even set something up in the future for coaches.
I think it goes back to the fundamental, like just understanding what the universal fundamental weaknesses of youth, grassroots youth development are with players. I mean, I think it starts there. So you have to understand what those weaknesses are. I mean, the amount of information that's accessible on YouTube without even knowing where, I mean, if you just type in keyword, like, so what I don't know, I can find out as a coach in 1 week, or in 2 hours, I can find something that can help me. So, so the accessibility to viewing online clinics, and the information is just the access to information is a totally different level. But I think viewing and traveling around and being proactive to ask coaches if you can sit in and watch them practice, because we learn something from everyone. So I don't think that I know in any way, shape, or form everything, but I think it just starts with from the standpoint of understanding what those universal fundamental weaknesses are. What are the obstacles and things that can restrict pathways to further development, and then there's also environmental issues that affect, like, I think now coming out of the COVID time, it's fantastic because now it's sort of like, if you think back two years ago, you'd be just like, what was going on there? And now we have like the challenge of having a lot of apathy in the kids, because the 12-year-olds during COVID became 14, the 14-year-olds became 16. So the impact that it had on the intrinsic motivation of players was tremendous, and because the structure of what we do as teachers, because you're a teacher, and as coaches, it forms the behavior. So you basically have this gap and this separation from this. And I spoke to a lot of different coaches during that time and a short period of time after, and they all had the same issue of having the discipline and finding the discipline with the players, and the attentiveness and the focus and the sustained concentration over a period of time during their practices. Now I think it's just starting to come back, but if you understand the different ages and stages of development, it's normal, because they were isolated, maybe they opened up to some other activities, but not too many, because almost a lot of things were shut down.
Yeah, but the thing is, they had a lot of free time, they had a lot of free time, but it shows that they need the contact with a real person.
Yeah.
Because you have all these information that's available, but as a young kid, you have to be shown the right way.
And also the boundaries between their peers. Also to be able to find the social boundaries. The practice together, conflict, like, competitiveness, conflict, sorting it out, eye to eye, person to person. So that in general, before COVID, I feel is somewhat of an issue in Belgium, and maybe in some ways in Europe, that there's that thing of being face to face, dealing with a little bit of adversity, finding where you stand with that person. I think if you don't have those interactions this way, and that's why sport's so important, that it's easy to find a resolution, like when you're online or when you're separated from a person, because if you have you can just throw out a little bit of a remark, or you can disagree with someone, but there's nothing coming back. So I think it's like this thing now of creating these opportunities where kids and people can confront something head on, are forced to deal with it, and that you find, oh, maybe that wasn't the right way of doing it, because that certainly did, because the result didn't really work out in my favor, and then having to find another path, and then making maybe a mistake there, and then now going the other. I think that's just normal, and I think that's the one thing about that I see, is that that challenge and the adversity and the competitive nature on court needs in the interaction needs to evolve to another level for the kids.
Seeing those kids evolve in the practice, it's a huge inspiration for them to work with all those top coaches. But how much do they need to do on themselves? Because they can see a drill in the practice, but of course, if you want to master a drill, you're not going to master it in practice alone. I had a basket, and I know you practice a lot outside of your club when you were younger. How do you see this?
Yeah, well, and this is the misconception. For me, it's really it's astonishing to me, because the intrinsic motivation that I had as a young athlete at let's say from 13 or 14 years of age. Of course, I grew up in a multi-sport, so I played a lot of different sports.
Which sports?
I played American. I played. Okay, I'm Canadian, so of course I played hockey. So every Canadian plays hockey.
Ice hockey.
Yeah, you start by learning how to skate, and then you play. So I played 2 or 3 years of hockey, and then I played American football. I played baseball. I played basketball
on a weekly basis.
Well, this is seasonal sports.
Okay.
So when you're, in schools, you have a seasonal, seasonal sport template. So, but this was phenomenal. So we were always active, and taking great learning experiences from all those different sports, because all those different sports give you different kinds of learning opportunities, especially athletically, because with baseball, the hand-eye coordinate; with American football, the physicality, the contact and the physicality,
the sheer strength that you need,
the sheer strength and the mindset of we cried. I remember we were really challenged, and so the mental toughness and the different kinds of learning that you take from each one of those sports, it's like it helps forms you and shapes you into a better athlete. Of course, at one stage, you have to decide on one, and so I decided on basketball when I was 18, 19.
Why did you choose basketball over the other sports?
Well, I was excelling at that time more in American football. Like, I was starting to get a lot of opportunities already for university, and I didn't have as much. I didn't have as many recruitment opportunities for basketball, but I just loved the game. That's just a choice that you have to make. I just loved the game of basketball, and so then I had to make that difficult decision. But coming back to the intrinsic motivation, that's something that has to come from within you. I think that your surroundings and your environment, I think that if you have the inclination and you have the passion as a young person to want to practice the game on your own, then that needs to be supported also. So as we mentioned, the 2 times practices a week, or maybe 3 times practices of basketball, that's not enough. So it's like taking the things, and that's where teacher coaches are so important, because though I think to sell hope and to give your athletes and your players the mindset to practice the game on their own. I think that's it, because we didn't have to be pushed to do that. I just remember I always ask the kids, if I'm ever in a camp or a clinic environment, I ask them how many kids have a basketball, and you'd be surprised at
how little.
Yeah, You know, it's like, so it'd be just like if you're an artist or if you're a musician. It's like if you're
You don't have a
the
guitar at
conservatory, like you don't have a violin. It's just like if you're an artist and you're a musician, hey, you have your violin with you all the time. You have your instrument with you all the time. For basketball players, it's a basketball. So I
But
think
you
those.
talk about the environment and the parents. We see at the end of the sessions that we do, the skill development, a lot of parents are coming early to see the practices. What is the role of the parents? First question. And second question, how did it work out with you? Did you come from a sports family, or how did it?
I didn't come from a sports family at all. My dad was a maintenance foreman for a school district, but before that, he was 25 years in the Canadian Navy, and my mom was just stay-at-home mom. And they had no sportive background, but the one thing is that I was a bit of a hyperactive kid, and so I think the sport was really good, and all those different avenues for me to release that energy. And I think that for me, in my situation, my parents released me to the activity, and I think that's really important.
They didn't try to hold you back.
Hold that. So that always got me there. Always, because there was multiple different activities and teams and sports, and now you see the challenge of, and nowadays both parents generally are working. One activity with school is generally enough, and it's a challenge to get you. And you see it all the time. We hear it all the time from kids and parents about like, oh, I'm going here. Yeah. I mean, I remember being on 4 different teams at one time during a season that were overlapped, and I got to every practice, and my parents had to get there. So I think that the support of time for the parents just to get your child,
it's tremendous.
Just to get them there and get them back is enormous.
And also in the weekends.
That's enough. That's enough. When I say release the child to the activity, it's what we're always challenged with as coordinators, as coaches, is the nature and the mentality and the mindset, and sometimes the uneducated mindset of the parents. Putting too much pressure on the child, and
not understanding the ups and downs.
Not understanding the ups and downs. Not understanding that when kids are on the court during practice, during games, that they are taking pictures. That the parents don't understand that when they're playing, when they're on that forum, because it is like they're on a forum and there's a spotlight on, that they're getting views. They're at moments, not like long stares. They're just getting a view. They're getting a little bit of a look. What's mom doing? Okay. So mom's there talking to the other mom about their Gucci handbag and going shopping and Hasselt and not watching and attentiveness on the court. That has an impact on a child. Or conversely, dad blowing a top. He's got a red tomato head and he's yelling and screaming at the referees and at the coach. They take an internal picture of that. And not to mention the drives to the games and practices and what happens after game in the car. Kids probably just want to probably go to McDonald's and have a Happy Meal, but then those rides turn into maybe not in all situations a very positive conversation.
So attitude and mentality is contagious, huh?
It is, and so sometimes we're not all blessed to have, as a child athlete, have a parent that is like an actual basketball coach. So a coach-son, coach-daughter relationship, because sometimes those relationships don't work either. It's not that the parent needs to be an expert in sportive development, but that's why I say it can be enough just the support to get them there every time without the pressure of and the angst of feeling like, oh, I can't get there to practice. The release and then release the child to the activity.
And trust the coach.
And the only time I think parents should be, and parents need to be aware of the behavior and the emotional state of a child after practice over a period of time. How is the kid responding to the activity? I think that the only time I would have a conversation, and to be honest, I've never had a conversation with the coach. My daughter plays. I know you have kids, and I've never approached a coach about like anything like technically or tactically or the only thing that I would, if I ever did, it would be like if there was something on a a human level or an inappropriate nature of how to teach and to help kids feel safe and supported and inspired.
Tom, the Summer Academy is coming up in the month of July, and you and Midun are going to be the skill development coaches. Seeing what you saw in those first practices now, those first 5 practices, how are you going to design your template, your practice? Because I know you're always busy with your template to benefit them the best. What are you going to emphasize on?
Well, I think all the universal deficits in you. So I've already touched on this before. So the ball handling, the passing and catching, the finishing, both hands with equal efficiency from different angles and different situations, and then the shooting. So a lot of shooting mechanics, form shooting, and then the evolution into game speed, off the catch, off the dribble. So I think just broadening and expanding and giving them more mechanical repetitions, because that's what they're not getting enough of in their team practices. So that's why the off season is fantastic, because it gives them the opportunity to get the more mechanical repetitions, and also it gives them a script to practice on their own. So it's not just giving. I think that we all need to. The coaches need to give them homework. So like if you get the opportunity,
inspire them
and give them the package or some workouts where they can get busy with this, and they can, for me, the player development begins when the student athlete takes the instruction and the part method, mechanical break, the corrections, and are busy with doing them like this without supervision. So, for example, when we're working in stations and I'm working here with 2 players and we're having them work on very specific details in terms of corrective input, like, for example, shooting mechanic, just getting them to do things, a full extension, full follow through. And then if I go to another basket and I start working with those 2 players and introducing, these mechanics and these corrections, and I turn around and I look back at the previous station and the kids are just going back to just doing whatever. So you don't need to be a great athlete in order to have the discipline.
You can turn yourself into.
Exactly. So the discipline teaches the discipline. The structure forms the behavior. But it's the kids that take that instruction and they take it themselves, and and they take that picture and they keep on repeating that, and they want to repeat that task at the highest level. That's on them. That's on the players. But the teacher coach needs to instill that discipline
and show them the way.
And show them the way, the model to follow, and that is I think that's crucial in what we're trying to do in off season.
Yeah, and even shows up in the NBA. You see all those good players who come in, very promising, and a lot of players fall out of it, and even players drafted in the 2nd round. Talk even a little bit about Joker, who's now MVP and won the championship, and how he looked when he was younger. So you can really keep evolving at an older age.
Well, it's funny you bring up that. It's like, I was having the conversation with a really, really great coach and a great friend of mine over many years about this. And North America might have invented the game, Okay, well, actually, Canada, Dr. James Naismith, but Europe has taken the development and the growth and the new dimensions to another level. So they're taking the game, and that is like, with the teacher coach template in the United States is gone back. It's going backwards.
It's based on athleticism over there.
But it's just the teacher coach model, the template of development is just and you see that by evidence of the what's happening in the NBA. If you look at if you look at Jokic,
not athletic at all. Doncic, Jokic, who are not athletic and are dominating. And what I hear is in the States, when you're not athletic, you don't even get to be in practice.
Well, I mean, look at the influx and look at the amount of international coaches from Europe that are taking positions now with the NBA teams in college. The influx of international coaches. It's showing you why. For one thing, if you look at those players and the amount of success that the international players are having, I think that the teacher coach model in America it's falling away, and I think Europe is starting to be the place of where the new dimensions and the new growth and the early development and knowing what the right things to do at the right. I mean the long-term athletic development model of Canada. Like if you look at Jamal Murray, for example, and that's a guy that's been involved in exposure internationally. So national team, Canadian national team, so his growth and development has a big part in. Look at his skill set. Look at how he plays the game.
Yeah, and he suffered that injury a couple of years ago, and sometimes with a big injury, that's when the players who come back stronger, they need that using discipline and working a certain way, and they take that into their whole basketball skill development and stuff, and they start working more meticulous. I think it's phenomenal the way he played.
Yeah,
with unguardable.
Incredible. Those two are, I just can't think of like two more like unbelievable players, obviously incredibly skilled and tremendous, but their how they play together, how their games complement each other and their fusion and connection. It's pretty amazing to
you see
watch.
the clips also with the family involved, and it's like really one big family, and the coach has a huge role in that too.
Yeah, his maturity. I mean, Jamal's maturity and step up that way, in term, was always obviously a tremendous talent. But if you look at his maturity and growth and his so much humility and just a tremendous person, right? Yeah, just good people, and so yeah, we'll see.
Bradley Beal is going to the Suns. There's a lot of talk about that. Do you see the Nuggets moving forward and taking a couple of more championships?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that we'll see how the salary cap works. If I'm not mistaken, I think that you got to pay. You got to pay Jokic. Like I think you got to pay him.
He's underpaid at the moment.
You got to give him. I mean, that's the first thing, and then with that, with the cap, you got to find a way to extend Jamal. I mean, I think it starts with those two guys because if they have a unique roster, right? Unique roster. I mean, the length and athleticism and the connectivity of the how all those pieces work together, but at the foundation of that is Jokic and Murray. You have to.
You think you'll be able to build a dynasty based on two superstars, or three? Because
historically you've seen that. Historically, you've seen that happen, but you've also seen in recent memory, like what happened in Brooklyn. You see that not working.
Yeah.
So I think I think your culture of your organization has a big part of that. Players towing the party line and honestly relinquishing and sacrificing some things in order to come to a common goal and a supreme common goal and outcome. So all of those things play in factor, and I think you've seen that work. I mean, obviously with Kyrie and LeBron, that formula helped them win a championship. So that combination.
What's going to happen? You mentioned those two. What's going to happen with the Lakers? It's funny that you mentioned those two because there's a lot of talks from them joining forces again.
Yeah, we'll see. It seems like there's a lot of speculation, and some of it could be possibly fake news, but we'll just see the outcome of that. I think, Kyrie is, and a coach friend of mine who was working for a short period of time in Brooklyn when Kyrie was there, when Kenny Atkinson was the head coach there, he said that Kyrie was from the outside looking in, and he's a little bit offbeat, and he's having some different views, obviously, with him thinking the world is flat, and then now there's some things that are adding on. He said it's the highest IQ player he's ever been around, and this coach has been around a lot of players and a lot of great players. He said it's off the charts. His basketball IQ is just unbelievable. So his intelligence and his basketball acumen is so high, but then you combine that with his ego and this eccentricity. Yeah, that's not for every coach to be able to cope with and deal with. My coach friend who was talking to me about this was saying he just wished he could just keep his mouth shut.
Do you
just play.
Do you see it working out in Dallas now? He's in a new situation even.
Yeah.
Or does he need LeBron to be on the right page?
Well, history proved that can work. And at this stage, LeBron needs a second dance partner, And I think Kyrie was, but Kyrie's hopping around now. He's hopping around now, and the impact of the scrutiny and the public scrutiny of what's going on with these anti-Semitic things now. So there's always some things. Now this is kind of, I think it's gone settled a little bit since he coming into Dallas, and it was a short sample size because he came in, the trade happened in the midpoint or a little bit after the midpoint of the season. So it'll be interesting to see, how that will evolve from a starting point with Dallas, if he ends up staying there. So, time will tell, right? But I think his, when it starts going layer to layer to layer, if you see that, then I think I would be a bit skeptical until, he proves the proof is in the pudding, right?
It's hard to stay out of trouble for some players, And then you see a LeBron James who's never been in trouble in his whole career and still going strong. Do you think he's got a couple of more years left at this level?
I think so. I was a little bit concerned. Even actually, I think it was the first COVID, the bubble season, because he started to have some issues. From the
abdominal,
the abdominal, the lees or the groin area. You get some calves, so some small areas there that's usually an indication but he's avoided up till now the major traumas, right?
Yeah.
And he's a freak, right? So
I hear that on the planes, and he's going for a stretching session every 20 minutes.
Yeah.
He has a room on the plane, even team plane, and he stretches. He never sits still to let his body go stiff.
Yeah, and you can imagine how much those guys are traveling. So, and with the length of those guys, but I think in general, I think their support and the kind of people and resources that they have around them, obviously that helps too, right?
Yeah.
But it does start from a the personal decision to self-educate and to its longevity.
And to invest in that too, to see
So he's
the
already had
importance.
longevity. So how much more longevity is going to have? I guess that's up to him, right? I mean, it's like,
But it's crazy the numbers that he's putting on, the
Yeah.
reliability that is unbelievable.
yeah, for sure. It's just, but we're, it's proof that some people were not all built the same way, right? This guy's like a machine. Huh?
Yeah. Tom, we have a lot of stuff more to talk about, but
Episode 2.
Yeah. So we have enough ground to schedule a second session. Eh?
Perfect. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for stopping by.
Yeah. Thanks for
and
having me.
see you soon. Eh?
All right.